We're back with the second episode of this podcast. Opinions you didn't know you needed. And yes, all my episodes will be done live. I'm not going through the whole editing process. I like for myself to just be authentic. I'm not trying to hide nothing. I'm not trying to go back and edit something I said out. I'm not a politically correct person. I just tell the truth. And that's what we're going to finish on today. Last week, if you missed that episode, it was certainly a wonderful episode. Um, just telling the truth. That's all I do. Is tell the truth. But with that, so first, before I start, listen, I really need you all to go to my YouTube channel, Opinions You Didn't Know You Needed. I really need you all to go there and subscribe. I wanted to do this episode on YouTube live, but because I only have 24 subscribers, I'm not able to. I need 100 subscribers. No, I need 50. I'm sorry. I need 50 subscribers so that I can start going live on my YouTube. Please go subscribe to the YouTube channel so that I can go live on the actual Opinions You Didn't Know You Needed page. Right now, I go live on Facebook, then I save it, then I upload it to that YouTube channel. But if I'm able to go live, it just posts instantly. And like I said, I don't go through the whole editing process. I'm not trying to, oh, well, I'll color grade. I'll do those minor things, but I don't cut out anything. Whatever I say it. And it's on here. It's on the internet. It's going to stay there. You got a problem with it? All you got to do is inbox me and you can be a guest on my podcast. It's really that simple. I'm not going to argue with people in the comments. You comment something, you don't like what I said, that's perfectly fine. Beautiful. Just inbox me and then you can just come on the episode. We can do an episode dedicated to you didn't like what I said, and that'll be the episode. So yes, I don't have hard feelings either way. So if you don't like something I said, that's beautiful. Just inbox me and we can talk about it. As you all know, um, I am Chaston, your conversationalist, and I do go by the Gospel Cat Williams because we both just believe in telling the truth. We not worried about your feelings. We don't care about what you think about what we have to say. We just tell the truth. With that being said, I was just talking to my mom and I was telling her how I was going through. So I did my first episode last Wednesday. I will do one episode every week, and like I said, I'll do it here, and then until I get to 50 subscribers, I'll do it here, then download it, then upload it to my YouTube. And obviously, you're gonna need to make clips because nobody's gonna just sit and watch the whole video unless you say something interesting to them. And so I was interviewing people trying to see, because I know I'm not gonna consistently clip up the videos myself. So I'm like, man, I need to find somebody who's willing to do this. And so I went to good old faithful Fiverr. I'm not sponsored by Fiverr at all. They're not paying me to talk about them, but I use Fiverr regularly. I think it's a freelance app. And so I went on there, trying to find someone who'd be willing to clip up my video, clip up the podcast. And so I was having some great conversation. They were like, hey, we can get you 30 clips out of your hour episode, out of your 45-minute episode. And I'm like, well, I don't really care about the amount of clips you get me. I just care about the quality. Like, I just want to make sure that they're good clips. I want to make sure whatever clip you're taking, like, it's a good clip and it's actually worth clipping. And as we were talking, I was talking to one person, as we were kind of finalizing everything, it dawned on me to ask them, what is your religion? So I asked him, from his name, I assumed he was Muslim. And so I said, hey, are you a religious guy? He says, yes. I said, are you Muslim? He said, yes. I said, oh, I don't think you and I are going to be able to work together. And he's like, well, that's not right for you to not hire me because I'm Muslim. And I said, well, no, that's not why I don't think we'd work well together. I said, I don't think we'd work well together because you'd have to be objective in order to clip up my videos. Because I talk about everything. I told him I talk about Islam. I talk about Christianity. I talk about Catholics. I talk about atheists. I talk about transgender. I talk about the LGBTQ plus. I mean, I hope I said that right. But I say, I talk about it. I talk about politics, although I'm not a very political person. What I still share my opinions on these things. And the guy was just kind of like, well, I can be objective. And I said, well, I don't think you can. And I said, and just in my experience, I've yet to meet a Muslim who's objective. And when I mean objective, I'm saying who can look at their belief and say, yeah, I don't really like that. I don't really understand that, so I haven't met that. And the guy was like, well, you just met one. And so I said, okay, so if I were to make a post about how Prophet Muhammad messed with an underage female, married her at 6, consummated the marriage at 9, if I talk about that, are you willing to clip that and send that to me? Immediately we started arguing. And I said, well, this right here is why I'm saying you and I would not work together, because I'm going to mention that. I'm going to talk about the truth of Islam. I follow God Logic. I follow Cliff Connectley. I follow Sam Shimon, AP, David Wood. It's a long list. Pastor Orlando. I follow quite a few people, and they talk frequently about Islam. But like I told him, it's not just you. It's not just Islam. I interviewed a Christian, and the Christian was like, "Oh, I can certainly be objective." I said, "Okay, great." So if I talk about how these pastors do be out here robbing people, and it might be your pastor that I'm talking about that day. If I'm talking about how, you know, that church over there, they really do be stealing people money. How this pastor just went to prison because he was caught in fraud. The pastor out in New York, he was caught. He got caught and went to prison. First somebody came to rob him at his church. Then later on, he got caught in some stuff and he went to prison. And I'm like, so if I talk about this stuff, are you willing to clip that? They said, well, no, because you're making God look bad. No, I'm not. I don't. Nothing I say about a pastor, a preacher, or just a regular old showing up to church sitting in the pew. Nothing I say about them has a reflection on God. That's just me acknowledging that everyone in Christianity is not perfect. That's just me acknowledging that you do have people who manipulate the Bible. That's where slavery came from. People were taking things out of the Bible and manipulating. And the Christian says, well, I know I wouldn't, because I wouldn't be willing to do that. I said, well, I appreciate your honesty. You just not the one for me. There was another Christian was like, hey, no, I can do it. I said, okay. Are you, what are you, Pentecostal, Baptist, And it's not me being picky. It's me just saying, I know how people are. I know how it is when you're so committed to something and then someone is saying something contrary, or they're mentioning the negative about whatever it is you're attached to. It can be a thing of like, no, I wouldn't dare post that. A Catholic, I was like, hey, I'm gonna talk about how the popes they do mess with these young. It's just the truth. It happened. It's not a good thing. It's sad that it happened, but it's something that I am gonna talk about. And they were like, okay, yeah, no, I don't. And again, start trying to argue with me. And at that moment, I was like, no, I'll pass. I'll pass. It's not. I don't want to just hire somebody just because I don't want to do it. I want to hire somebody that I know we can work well together. And I found that person eventually. I did find the person. I asked them all those same questions. What are you Muslim? They was like, no. Are you Christian? They said yes. I said, well, now this is what I'm gonna talk about. And they were on board. I said, now, I'm gonna talk about transgenders. Are you okay with that? They said, yes, I don't mind. Okay, now. I said, nah, because I'm telling you, I am the Gospel Cat Williams, and I just tell the truth about whatever's happening, whatever is being said. I do speak on that. I give my opinion, and so you should start seeing some clips. That was a long way of me saying you should start seeing some clips. Share those clips. I need to get to 50 subscribers on the YouTube channel. And as always, if you want to be a guest, even right now, if you're listening to me talking, you're like, man, I would love to come up and have a conversation with this cat. All you got to do is request up. That's it. I'm not that person where you got to email me here and then we'll figure out dates. Just message me. I'm doing my podcast episodes every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Eastern. You can message me Wednesday at 6 p.m. and say, hey, I want to be your guest today. By all means, if no one has already claimed that episode, then you're more than welcome to come on and be the guest for that episode. That was a lot. That was certainly a lot, but I felt like I needed to get that out. So, what we're going to be talking about today, like I said, is part 2 of We Just Tell the Truth. I don't know how many of you follow the Isaac Curry show. And I like Isaac Curry. Isaac Curry is a wonderful singer. But I think Isaac Curry falls into that category of Christian that I'm actually going to be addressing tonight. I don't think you should ever be so impressed by a person that you just lose your brain. He was talking to Prophet Brian Karn. And listen, I actually met Brian Karn. This was years ago. I still lived in South Bend. I moved out of South Bend in 2011. And this was nowhere near 2011. I really don't even remember the actual like what year it was. I know Prophet Dawson has been gone on with the Lord for some years now, and that's who I met him through. So I was at the UP Mall. Prophet Dawson was at the mall, and Prophet Brian Karn was with him. My family in Indiana, they some preachers, you know. So Prophet Dawson he only knew me because my Uncle Rico, my mom, Prophetess Rochelle Lee, the high priest. Her, and my dad, and you know, I don't want to start naming people because then people get mad because you left them off. But just through my family, he knew who I was, and I knew who he was because of that. So as he's walking past, I'm like, "Hey, how you doing, Prophet Dawson?" And he said, "Oh man, how you doing, young guy?" I said, "I'm good," and I would always let them know, you know, "Hey, I'm a Chasten. I'm Rochelle's youngest son." Then he'd be like, "Oh, so you related to Rico?" And I was like, "Yeah, that's my uncle." Okay, cool. And he says, "This is Prophet Brian Karn. Remember his name because one day he will be a big deal." And he was right. Prophet Brian Karn is a big deal. And Brian Karn is on this podcast. And Isaac Curry asked the question, for people who don't know, what is a prophet? What is a prophet? What is their job? How do they operate? And Brian Karn says something to the extent of a prophet just tells you God's will. They just tell you what God wants to happen. I was so thrown off because Isaac Curry was like, "Oh my God, that is so good." And I was just like, "No, it's not. That's horrible. That's horrible because that's not what. There's nowhere in the Bible where you're gonna find any of the prophets saying, well, all we do is tell you God's will." That's no. They're telling you what God said. They're telling you what God said is going to happen. I would have loved for him to push back at Brian Karn on that explanation. Now, I granted I don't even know if I get into the whole every time a prophet speaks, you gotta learn that it has to be accurate. I am one of the people who do believe in trial and error because the devil also talks to you. I know we don't believe that, but the devil really will talk to you. He'll tell you God says something, and I promise. Like I remember one time, and I talk about this all the time, and I do not remember what this revelation was. I have been studying my Bible, something ridiculous. I mean, I was studying, and I came up with this revelation, and I promise you, I've been trying to remember this revelation for the longest. And I go to my pastor, and I'm like, "Hey, I was studying. God gave me this wonderful revelation." And I share it with her, and she was looking at me, and she said, "Please don't ever tell nobody that." I said, and in my head, I was kind of like, that was deep though, but like, why not?" And she's like, "Well, that's blasphemy." And I was like, and then she shows me in the scripture where what I was saying was blasphemy. And I'm like, "Oh man." And in that moment I realized, oh, the devil will trick you too. That's kind of what he do. And so I do give prophets error, and I mean, grace for they thought God said something. It's just trial and error, and it's just the way Brian Carn was saying the prophet's duty, and he mentions like a prophet has to be 100%, which he's right on that. People do not leave grace for prophets to miss God. A pastor can get up and preach a horrible message. If you grew up in church, you know what I'm talking about. They could preach a terrible message, and people dance, they shout, they run around the building. A singer could get up and bomb. Now I mean, I don't know too many that'll get with the singer that's bombing, but they won't strip the title of. But they, it's like, well, they just had a bad day. They was probably a little hoarse. They give grace for that. I do agree with Prophet Brian Carn on that. But then when a prophet gets something wrong, we are ready to throw them to the wolves. We are, but I just think sometimes they overstep. I think whenever, and I talk about this very often, I think two of the things that kill the church is pride and delusion. Those two things got the church, what the young folks say, in the chokehold. Pride and delusion has the church in the chokehold. How do you, as a prophet, go against scripture? How do you, as a pastor, go against scripture? And it's like they really believe God is like, I heard one pastor, I don't know his name. If I did, I would. And I only say names so that you can go verify what I'm saying. I'm not saying their name to try to, disrespect them or make them look bad. I'm saying names so that you can go verify and say, wow, I can't, they really did say this. I don't know this pastor's name. But he says he believes the world is going to end in 2027. He said God told him that. I really wish I knew his name so you could go see the clip. And the person interviewing this, because he was at a podcast, and the person interviewing this pastor was just like, wow, I cannot believe that the Lord shared that with you. I was just kind of like, man, that's sad that because he's a pastor and he's a well known pastor, a well respected pastor, that doesn't mean he's right. It doesn't mean that what he's saying is right. Me personally, I would have pushed back and said, well, I don't think God told you that, because he tells us very plainly that no one knows. That's very plain. Very plain. No one knows. He also isn't telling anyone. So I don't know why you think. And it also says he's coming back like a thief in the night. What thief gonna come and tell you I'm coming to your house tonight? I'm not going to I'm not telling nobody where I live, but I do have some very very special artifacts in my man cave area that I cherish. I mean, I cherish these things. If somebody was coming to steal these items, I'm not going to even tell you what they are, because you might try to find my address and come steal them. If you if you came to this house and tried to steal these items, and before you came, you said to me, "Hey, I'm coming to your house tonight, and I'm gonna steal those items. I'm coming. I'll be there at 10 p.m. and I'm a that you're not going to be successful at that." So it's like, for him to say God told him when when the world was going to end, when he's going to return, and all of that. That goes against Bible. God wouldn't do that, because then God would be lying, and God is not a liar. My theory is always this: one of three people are lying. Now, it's either me, it's the Bible, or it's the people telling me what the Bible said. Now, one of us three are lying. I personally don't believe it's the Bible. So if we eliminate the Bible now, either you lying or I'm lying. Most times, in my particular case, it was me lying. It wasn't the person telling me what the Bible said. It was me. I was reading what I wanted to read. I was interpreting things the way I wanted them to say. And I felt like that's what Brian Carn was doing. I felt like Isaac Curry allowed him to do that. I felt like the guy interviewing that pastor allowed him to mislead people. That's why I always tell people, listen, you come on, and I'm anybody is welcomed on my show. I don't care if you can be Muslim, you can be atheist, you can be Jehovah Witness, you could be transgender. I do not care. You can come on this. Just understand when you come on this show, if you start saying stuff, you got to support what you're saying. I and me and my brother argue about this. He's actually on here, Purcell. Y'all will follow him on Instagram. Percy 3K, I believe is his tag. Billboard charting producer. Y'all go check him out. Me and him argue about this quite often. He'll say, "Well, Chasten, that's their truth," and it frustrates me every time he say it, because I'm like, I just don't believe in your truth. I don't personally. I don't care what your truth is. Your truth doesn't matter to me. Like, that is a me and him argue about this all the time. And he'll say to me, Chasta, but you can't tell somebody their truth is wrong. And I'd be like, well, I do it all the time. I frequently tell people your truth is wrong. I don't care what your truth is. You need some type of substance to your truth. And since we talk about the church, boy, the church is bad at that. Now, of course, not everybody. Always leave room for that. I don't think everyone has that bad habit of saying, it's like you got the people who be like, you looked at me funny. And it's like, I wasn't even paying no attention to you. Rather than accept me saying, and I wasn't paying any attention to you, well, you can't tell me what I saw. And it's like, well, no, I can. You're saying that I was doing this, but now somebody may have been looking at you funny. But again, you gotta tell the truth. And that's where me and Cat Williams, we thrive at that. We thrive at just telling the truth. And so I would love to have a conversation with Isaac Curry, because it's like, yo, why is that the approach? Because he's Brian Carn. He had Ty Tribbett on his show, and I love Ty Tribbett. When we first started kind of getting real serious about church, me, the young guys at the ministry, Purcell was always like the front runner of let's get serious, so Purcell was the first one to, kind of like be in church and make it okay to kind of, well, not person, well, as a young person, because we did have other people that I kind of looked at, Pastor Andreas Parsley. He was the first person in the church we really saw rapping, and he just seemed cool to us. Like, I don't want to speak for the other ones. For me, he seemed cool, and it was like, oh man, this dude's rapping. He's a guy who's shouting in church. He's a guy who's doing this, and so he was, and in the choir, their church choir, he was always so energetic. And so as a kid, like, we used to always be like, oh man, Pastor Parsley, Pastor Parsley. My older brother Christ, he made it cool to be a Christian. And so as we started getting older and kind of making those choices, Purcell plays such a vital role in us becoming more serious, and how we carried ourselves in church. And then as we start having youth choir, Ty Tribbett was just like the peak of that, how you can be in church. Like, you don't have to come and shout a certain way. You don't have to come, and I'm gonna talk about that because I know some people, and I don't know if I'm gonna say your name. I might. I will see how the Lord leads me as I get to that topic. But Ty Tribbett made it like, no, you can do this dance in church too. No, you can jump like this in church. You don't have to do this. You don't have to do that. And so Ty Tribbett has always been like peak of everything to me when it comes to church things. And for him to get up and make it like, and me and my brother argued about this when he was stating how the church system is whack. The systems, the functions of it, like all of that stuff, the rules is whack. I disagree with him. Now, you do have some churches, again, you have to leave room for some. You do have some churches that are overly strict. I will say that. You do have some churches, like, I know when I stopped doing it because my pastor said, "Hey, please stop doing that." I would go to churches and it's like they don't want you to walk while people praying. I'm a walk because I want to go to the bathroom. I need to go to the bathroom right now. So this person might pray for 30 minutes. You know, when you in church, especially churches that believe God moves, and so man, I mean, I gotta go right now. You want me to wait 30 minutes? I need to go to the bathroom. I'm sorry. So I'm gonna go. They don't want you walking in while prayer is going. I'm walking into the building. And if your doorkeeper tries to stop me, I'm gonna let them say, "Oh, I tell, oh no, I'm all right. I'm gonna just go ahead and go inside." They praying. Oh, I need some prayer, so I need to be inside while they're praying, right? So I do agree with him on that. You do have some churches that are strict, but also a church without rules, where anybody could just do whatever they want. That's a wild church. Apostle Paul teaches about that. That you should have some type of order in your church. So I don't agree with Ty Tribbett. Now, I don't know if that's what Ty Tribbett was saying. All I did was listen to the podcast episode, and Isaac Curry didn't really do a great job of making Ty Tribbett explain his stance, explain what he means by the church system. Even he did touch on offering and all of that stuff. I told my brother Purcell, I said, you know, I have an issue when people who've made so much money off the church starts talking about the church and money. Ty Tribbett has made a lot of money off of his albums that he sold in church, off appearances, people paying him to come speak, people paying him to come sing. And if you just hate money that much in the church, you just show up for free. And my brother was like, "Oh no, that's not the same thing." I mean, here's one of those things. Personally, we're gonna just agree to disagree because I don't. But again, I would like to talk to Ty Tribbett so I can get his understanding. He can clear up what he's saying. Uh, oh my God, Isaac Curry when Kim Burrell was on there. I was not a. I didn't even watch the full episode because I'm not a big Kim Burrell fan. She can certainly sing. She's a phenomenal singer, but I feel like when you're a representation of Jesus Christ, that should look a certain way at all levels, right? I'm not just saying Kim Burrell because she's a celebrity, and you know, but I mean, I feel like Kim Burrell all the way down to the Christian who nobody knows. I feel like you should just represent Jesus a certain way. And when she brings up the infamous moment on, I think it was Sunday's Best, the audition, she brings up that moment, how her and Pastor Donnie McClurkin were laughing while someone else was up auditioning. And she's like, well, you know, I was saying to him, just focus on what you're doing. We're not even worried about you. One, you're a judge. How are you not worried about the person standing in front of you singing? How are you not? How are you and Donnie McClurkin having this conversation? That's, you know, and it's bad. I mean, I can imagine that. You know, here it is. I'm trying to become a gospel singer. I believe it was Yolanda Adams, Donnie McClurkin, and Kim Burrell. I believe they were the three judges at that moment. They are three icons in gospel industry. They are just they are. Yolanda Adams is a legend. Donnie McClurkin, legend. Kim Burrell, legend. And you and two of these three legends are laughing while I'm up here singing. I can certainly understand why that guy was frustrated. Now, granted, he was not doing a great job. He was struggling a bit. You know, he was struggling a bit, but it still doesn't give you the right as a now. You can. I don't know what Simon Cowell believes. I don't know any of their beliefs. I don't. So, as a Christian, you should behave a certain way. And I don't feel like they should have been up there laughing. And then for her explanation to be, well, we wasn't laughing at him. We were laughing at something else. You know, we were kidding about this. And that's why Yolanda Adams was saying, hey, don't worry about them. Don't focus on them. Pay attention. You know, just listen to me. They're not even here. I felt like that was so bad. And then for her not to even acknowledge, we shouldn't have done that. In that interview with Isaac Curry, that's what she should have. Now, Granted, we were not laughing at him. However, we should not have been laughing because it did come off as if we were laughing at him. It did seem like that. Now, we were not laughing at him. Personally, I feel like let us in on the joke. Whatever y'all was, now we were laughing at the fact that, we were talking about before we came back on from break, we were talking about this one service we both were at, and then this person was doing this, and man, it just made us laugh, and the laugh just happened to carry over into, but to take no accountability for how you made that guy feel. But then when people look at the church, we be like, well, no, we not. That right there is why people look at us and feel like, you know, y'all ain't saved. Y'all not. And sometimes I kind of be with them. I be with them like, yeah, no, that was wrong. They shouldn't have done that. And I felt like in that moment, Isaac Curry should have pushed. Isaac Curry should have said, well, no. And I feel like as, you know, absolutely. It was a bad look. It certainly changed how people saw her. And then it's like, she keep having these moments. So eventually we do have to just look at and say, this is just who she needs to go work on herself. She had some fallout with Fantasia. And it was because some comparison she said between Fantasia and Leandria Johnson. And it's like bad. Then she's at this church. And we all I mean, not all of us, but a lot of us grew up in church. You always know it's this one person in the audience who can't sing, and they sing it louder than everybody else. They sing it louder than the person in the mic. And she says to the person, be quiet. Don't you sing while I'm ministering. And the person was offended by that. And then rather than Kim Burrell say, you know what, I could have done that differently, I apologize for offending you. I apologize for offending you. Um, she takes the road of when God is ministering to me. And then it's like, but that's not God. God don't make you be mean to people. God will make you call people out, but he don't make you be mean to people. He said, yeah, but I think people, they don't want to rock the boat. I'm rocking every boat I'm on. I always tell people, like, I'm that guy, uh, where there's something uncomfortable going on in the room. Y'all know what I'm talking about, where it's like a group of people and you can just tell there's something weird up in here. I say, listen, why are we acting like this big old elephant is not, you got 30 people standing up against the wall trying to act like this elephant isn't here. Don't worry, I'll address him. I'm going to figure out why is this big old elephant in the middle of this room and we all walking around here like this is normal. Like, and so man, listen, I would love to have that conversation with Kim Burrell and say, hey, now I heard your explanation. I didn't like it. I didn't think it was a great explanation. I felt like it was a cop out. I felt like you took the easy road out, the easy route. You took the way that took no humility on your end. And then what did she say? My name is too heavy to drag it. Your name is too heavy to drag. And we're supposed to be representations of Jesus Christ. And you're saying you're too important, that you too, come on, man. That right there should have let people should have looked at that and said, that's a wild thing to say. And you like you're just, and those people, oh my gosh, those people, like, with that character trait, I don't like it. Whereas like they have this false humility, but then when it's time to actually show humility, you actually see how prideful they are. That is horrible. Like that's what, remember when I said what killed the church, what's killing the church is pride and delusion. It's gonna show up every time. Now I know my areas of pride. Me and somebody was talking, and I'm very, even about myself. I don't just tell the truth about other people. I'm not that person. I'm not even that type of person. I tell the truth about myself all the time. And I was talking to somebody, and they said, you know what, Chaston, you self righteous. I said, you're absolutely right. There are a lot of times I find myself, and I pray and say, God, please help me with this, because I don't want to offend people. I don't want to be self righteous, where it's like I'm saying everybody else wrong but me. Only person right in this world is me. Only like I'm like I don't ever want to be that way. However, when I see wrong, I am gonna call it out, even in myself. When I see that I'm wrong, now you got to show me. You do have to show me. Now I'll apologize. It's like, Chastity, you offended me. Oh, I'm sorry. What did I do? Then you will explain to me what I did. That, depending on who you are, I might go through the trouble of trying to tell you, no, that's not. But most times I'm gonna just let you have it and be like, oh, okay, well, I'm so sorry. I really work on that. I try my best not to do that to you again. Because church people petty too. But that's not just church people. That's people. People are petty. People are just petty. But I feel like when you have these platforms, like Isaac Curry, you have a platform. You have a response as a representation of Jesus Christ, as a representative. You have a responsibility because people are watching. Somebody who don't know the truth, they probably are watching your show. And if you're letting those kind of things slide as true, then we're like, they not gonna know. But I'm always that guy. I am always that guy. Like I said, I didn't enjoy Ty Tribbett saying what he said about the church. And I have no problem with you acknowledging there are some issues in the church, which that's just the reality, right? But that's not all the church is. The church is not all bad. And it seems like everybody who has something to say about the church only talk about that. They only talk about, and I know it's because it's easy clickbait. It's easy to get views when you're talking about this pastor that's did something to a member. It's easy to talk about that. But let's talk. You also have to mention the parts of church that are amazing, because there are some amazing things in church. Like, man, and not all churches, some churches, you can certainly go there and you can feel the presence of God. And I don't know if you've ever been in something where it's just like all you feeling is you're sad, you're depressed, life is wearing you down. And it's nothing like the presence of God to just come on you and lift all those heavy burdens, give you good direction, give you, like, I mean, there's people who are bound in some real stuff that show up to church and leave feeling like they haven't felt in years. I remember being, and yes, I am about to brag on my pastor, because she don't, I will. And if you want to come up here and have a conversation about it, all you got to do is request up, and I will let you come up and we could talk about my pastor. That's not going to bother me at all. But I remember when outreach became like we've always been outreach driven, but we would actually go pick up people, go down to different recovery centers. And then she'd just ride around outside trying to find somebody who wants to come to church. And I remember this one lady, she came and she was asleep the whole service. And now you already know when you at church and you sleep, people got something to say. Well, my shit, look at her, disrespectful to the house of God, sleeping in the. And she was in the front. It was not like she was in the back hiding. She was in the front and she was laid out like all she needed was a pillow and a blanket. Purcell, what did you wife say? Your house coat and slippers. That's all she needed. She was comfortable. She was comfortable and slept through that loud music, because in our church we gonna bump. And I believe at that point, certainly Purcell was likely playing, and I believe Johnny, they were both playing. This is when we were at Keystone Lighthouse. I think that's what it's called. I know it's Keystone. And this lady sleep, and people looking at her like, man. And she'll wake up every now and then. She'll wake up and stretch it out, and then lay right back down and go right back to sleep. And in the middle of my pastor preaching, she says to the people, y'all stop worrying about her. Leave her alone. Let her sleep in peace. This is probably the most peaceful she's been in years. This woman was homeless, lived outside, and we deal with that population a lot. We understand a lot of the struggles that come with living outside as a man, let alone as a woman. She was thin, thin little woman. And afterwards, when my mom finished preaching, my mom is my pastor. And after she finished preaching, she starts praying for people. The woman, my mom tries to pray for the lady. And she says, no, 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 please don't. I'm so dirty. And the pastor, she just hugs her so tight. The woman starts crying, tears is falling down her face. And it's just like to see that the church is more than just trying to raise an offering. The church is more than that. And I got stories upon stories of I've been in church all my life. I'm 32 years old. I have stories upon stories of seeing people just stumble into the church and just like I just needed a place to just sit. One day we were at this place in Jonesboro. I don't remember the street or anything, but we were having church and we had finished service, and I started playing some recordings that I had did. Me and Purcell did, and then me and my sister Tucci, she follow her. I don't know her Instagram or anything, but I know her Facebook is Shernise Lee. She has a singles ministry that she's doing. You all need to follow that. And me and her started singing, and some lady just came in and just sat there. As we're singing, she's just sitting there listening to the music. Tears start filling her eyes, and eventually she just breaks down. And whatever God was doing, He was working through her. And even if it was just His presence. So when people try to make this thing about the church is one thing, and that's bad, that's just not true. It's just not true. It's not true. The amount of people that I remember a summer now, and yes, my pastor don't like to brag on herself. I will brag on her, and as I stated, if anybody got a problem with it, at any moment, just request up. Don't be that person who got a lot to say off camera. Come on camera, we can talk about it. We can say, well, you know what, Chaston, I personally know your pastor. Your pastor is this. Cool. Come on up. Let's talk. But until you're bold enough to do that, you're gonna listen to me talk about my pastor. I remember a summer, we used to go to this recovery center, and it was full of men. I mean, it was packed. I'm not gonna say the name, High Priest. If Percy, one of y'all, Tucci, anybody who can give a number, because I don't want to make up some wild number, but it was at least 300 men that was living in this place, this recovery center, and I mean it was massive. I mean it was crazy, and our pastor, when we started going there that particular summer, and I promise you, I'm not, I don't lie. I don't do that. That's the one thing I will not do is lie to you. Our pastor, we went down there. We're me, Purcell, another one of the singers, and like we bring food and all of that. Our pastor for that summer, her slogan, this is what she was saying: it's time to go home. Yes, 180 to 200 men. And that's what it's time to go home. A lot of them men that were there were married. A lot of them had children. A lot of them had families. And they were just living in this recovery center because it was easy. It was safe. They didn't have to change. They didn't have to do better. You could just come. And she was preaching, it's time to go home. And listen, when you're going to these places regularly like that, you start building friendships, relationships. You start learning names, learning who these people are, learning their history, learning how they ended up here. So you do start kind of going, and it's like, man, where the one dude at? Man, well, I ain't seen the one guy in a while. Where is he at? When I tell you that summer, so many men went home. I mean, it was to the point where it was just like Every week we showing up, 2, 3 men gone. Every week, and I'm not exaggerating that. I know some churches be like, we said we got every week we growing, and then you go to their church and it's only five, the same 5 people. I'm not saying that. I'm every week we would show up to this center, people, 2, 3 men at a time. We asked, hey, where the one guy at? Oh man, he called his wife and worked it out, man. He back home. Now where this guy at? Oh man, he left the other day. You know, him and his children been talking again. I remember. I'm listen. I'm not. So when y'all try to talk about the church, yes, there are some bad places out there, but I promise you, there are some churches out there that really are doing ministry. They're doing church the right way. That's my issue with you got a Ty Tribbett who gets on and bashes the church. And I know that wasn't his. I don't want to say I know because I don't know. I'm sure his intention was not to bash it because Ty Tribbett is also a pastor. So I'm sure he was not just trying to say how terrible the church is. But when you mention how bad some churches are, you need to let people know not all churches are like that. Because some people really believe, as crazy as this is going to sound, some people really believe every single church is bad. I remember we lived in Indiana, South Bend, Indiana. I don't remember any of the addresses. I don't remember not one. I remember street names. Like I remember we had a building on Du Bois, Harrison. I think we actually had a church on Indiana Street. I think I'm not 100% sure. But man, when we were there, now I was a lot younger. I was a lot younger there, but I do remember some churches. I don't even remember the very first building they had, but I do remember it being a storefront. You know, we lived there, so we would ride by. And they would always say that was our very first building right there. That was the very first one. And I can only speak to what I seen, what I remember happening. And I remember we started going to this Salvation Army. I don't remember the exact which one or any. I don't remember any of that. I do remember we started going, and we just started having influx of men showing up, women showing up to the church, and one guy used to get up all the time. I'm not gonna say his name. That wouldn't be right. But he used to get up all the time and say, "Giving honor to God. Um, me and my daughter don't have a good relationship. Y'all please pray that we get a relationship." And he would sit down. He would come every service. Every service, this was his prayer. This was his testimony. Every time. Then his testimony went from that to, me and my daughter talked today. Can y'all please pray that she come see me? That would be what he would say. And then one day, when him and his daughter spoke and she decides, I'm going to come see him, he just gets up and, like most kids, you just assume he's about to get up here. And it got to the point where you could say his testimony with him because he didn't add to it. He didn't take away. It was the exact same thing. This time he gets up and he just yells, my daughter's coming to see me. Takes off running around the church, starts crying, and does this funny little shout. When you trying to tell somebody like me, oh, ain't nothing good happening in church, all they want is your money, I feel bad for you. Lincoln Way, thank you. Lincoln, not Lincoln Way, but, well, yes, Lincoln Way. But I feel bad for you. If you have not experienced church the way it's supposed to be done, like the way church is supposed to be done for real, oh man, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry that you didn't get to experience it. And that is bad. That's bad on whoever's running these churches. And I'm very big on that. I say it all the time. I'm very big on pastors who are hurting people. I do not think you should do that. And God is certainly going to get you. Anytime you are in leadership position and you out here hurting people, man, listen, you got, that's why these people who be so quick to jump to pastor, man, hey, more power to you. For me, I know I'm not trying to pastor. I'm good at, I want to keep helping pastors. You know, right now I help my mom, and I told Percy, hey, you know, bro, when you start, don't worry, brother. I'm coming over there and I'm gonna help you. And he said, for real? I said, brother, I'm not trying to pastor. I don't want to do that. I'm good at helping pastors. I'm great at being a support, and that's where I want to stay, a supporter. I do not ever want to be a pastor. And but it's just like, and more church people need to stand up and stop letting people disrespect us like that. Y'all, we got to stop letting them talk about us like that. And I don't get into that whole thing of, well, y'all, it's bad doctors out there, but y'all still go to the hospital. You right. I'm one of them. Take me to the hospital. Please take me to the hospital. Take me. Whatever's going on, please take me to the hospital. There's some stores like now. One thing I did say I'm not doing, and I haven't done it since, is I have not been to a Chinese restaurant. I went to one when my mom was graduating with her PhD. I don't remember where we were. I know we was at Regent University. If someone doesn't mind commenting, telling me where Regent University is, because I do not remember. But we were there, and they we went to a Chinese restaurant, and them people were so rude to us. They were just so nasty to us, and they charged all that money for us to sit down and eat. And the doc, my see now, although I'm Christian, I got a little Pan African in me. I do got a little Dr. Umar Johnson in me, and it's okay. I got just a little bit. Now I'm not as bad as Dr. Umar, but I do got a little Dr. Umar in me. And I said, ain't no way in the world I'm gonna give y'all my money, and you rude to me like that. I like to be you. You gonna be nice to me when I give you my money. My uncle Ruben used to hate going to restaurants with me. I will complain because you about to give me a bill and you've been mean to me this whole time, and then you gonna expect a tip. And I'm that guy. I'm not tipping you. I don't tip just because like culture say you supposed to. I don't care. You better be nice to me. But y'all go to these people's restaurants, they treat y'all bad, they mean to you, and you still go. I don't get into that argument of a way of defending the church because the reality is some churches are bad. Some churches are mean to you. Some pastors, like I said, some of them are just trying to raise. And I knew one. I ain't don't worry, high priest. I ain't gonna call his name. I knew a preacher, and I knew him personally, and I know he was just doing it to raise money because he told me, "I'm only doing this to get money for rent." So I know it's churches like that, but not all churches are doing that. Some churches out there really are doing God's work. So listen, peep Christians, we gotta stop sitting down letting people talk about us like that. But we gotta be honest, right? You have to tell the truth because that's the only way the conversation can really take place. If they're just saying, well, all churches are bad, and then you like, no, 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 that ain't true. Ain't no church bad. All churches are good. See, that conversation ain't gonna go nowhere because that's just not the truth. What I tell people is, listen, tell them to come to your church. If your defense is not all churches, listen, my defense is the same. Well, I'm sorry you experienced that poor pastor. I'm sorry that bad church gave you a bad experience. Come to my church. I was just at an event Saturday. I think it was Saturday. And how much time I got left? I got about 6 minutes. Um and one of the guys that I know him from the basketball scene, and he says, "Man, I'm waiting on you to for your church to do this event, so I can come give away these ices." He sells ices. I don't know the name of the company, and if I did, I promise you I would say it. It's not like I'm trying to keep him from getting business, but like when I see him, I know him. Uh, I see him on Instagram often. I just don't know the name of it. But anyway, he's like, "Man, I'm waiting on y'all to do it so I could come and give away these ices and just really experience like come to your church and see what y'all about." Another guy was walking up as we were talking about it. Sayari the Kid. He is I'm not into rap at all, but he is a rapper. I think because like some of his stuff is him sing. I have no idea. I do know in Atlanta he's a big deal. And he's like, "Oh, bro, you go to church?" And I was like, "Well, yeah, yeah." I'm like, "I talk about it all the time. I'm PK. My parents are pastors. I go to their ministry." And he says, "Oh, bro, whenever y'all got something going on, you got my number. Text me. Let me know. I'm gonna pull up." I was like, "Okay, cool. No worries." He said, "Nah, for real, bro, because I'm really going around. I've been trying to